Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's a microwave and an oven, because this week we watched Resolution.
Written by Chris Chibnall.
Directed by Wayne Yip.
And aired on January 1st, 2019.
Damn, Wayne Yip. Is he the first director to return from the Moffat era for the Chibnall era? He might be.
I don't even remember what he directed.
Lie of the Land.
Wouldn't have even remembered his name.
And Empress of Mars.
Wouldn't have even remembered his name if you hadn't.
You clearly
said
didn't
that.
remember his name.
Yeah. So, this episode, this Resolution 2, Series 11.
Wow.
Well, it's actually punned on in multiple ways. Like, this is a resolution to Series 11, the New Year's resolutions that happen in this episode. Actually, I think that's it. But, yeah, no, I liked the sort of punny nature of the title. And I like this episode as a cap on Series 11, I'll say.
Yeah, I think it works pretty well, actually. It seems to resolve a couple more of the dangling threads that were left there over the course of the season. Things like Ryan's dad. Actually, that's mainly the biggest one is Ryan's dad. And also the fact that we hadn't seen any returning villains yet. And finally, we get to see the 13th Doctor facing off against her arch nemesis, Votan.
The Pating. And I think this is one of the best implementations of the Daleks in a while, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's just one Dalek. We've already spoiled the villain.
Yeah, well, okay, so this episode starts with the distant past, a battlefield.
Right.
And apparently, 3 opposing armies came together, were united against a single foe.
Right.
And they defeated the foe, and in order to not have it put itself back together or whatever, they separated its parts and decided to split them all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we get, and this was actually really funny to me, we get the meme font. This is the meme font.
Well, this
Isn't
it's, I don't know if it is, and if by the meme font you mean just impact bold, then sure. But this is very clearly riffing off of Captain America Civil War, which did this for the entire movie, and I hated it, and I hated it here too.
Yeah, I hated it here for sure. You know, we ragged on whatever 11th or 12th Doctor season it was that did the on-screen text in a way that like matched what was happening on screen, but you know, going the other direction is actually worse. It was the 11th Doctor, I remember now. I think it was Series 8. I'm pretty sure. Maybe. Guess I'm not sure.
Well, so they split up the enemy and sent it to 3 different corners of the Earth. And by corners of the Earth, they revealed to be the South Pacific, Siberia, and Yorkshire.
Right. Series 8 was actually the 12th Doctor. Just to correct myself there. Yeah, Yorkshire.
But we only see scenes of the South Pacific and Siberian guards making it to wherever they're burying the piece of the enemy. Whereas then we see the Yorkshire guy just got randomly gunned down by a guy with an arrow, just in a complete freak accident.
I assume they don't ever detail or explain what this is, but I'm assuming they were just like highway robbers or something, and they just shot this guy down. I
think the narration says it was just like a highway robber, yeah.
Yeah, they search his body, and they're like, well, looks like this guy has nothing on him, and they just leave.
Yeah, they just leave the body part in the bag right next to him, and apparently his body is left there long enough that it decays with the bag still in his hand, and nobody comes along and steals the bag for the next 3,000 to 7,000 years.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of in the middle of nowhere, but then we see that, you know, there's actually it's done in a very cool transition that the town of Sheffield is kind of built up not around this guy's body, because that would kind of mean they like found the body and they're like, this is where our town is going to be.
Perfect.
But, we transition and he's actually, they're doing an archaeological dig in the sewers of Sheffield. And yeah.
Yeah, you have to wonder whose bright idea this was, actually, in hindsight. I have a lot of questions about the setup of this episode. Like, also, he talks about how the story is handed down from the Guardian through their kin to the next one, and I just see this guy on the South Pacific island with no islands anywhere nearby and no civilization anywhere nearby, and I'm like, how did this guy like procreate? Like, what?
Yeah, well, it really actually sucks for the Guardians in modern times that we see a little bit later. Really sucks to be them.
Yeah, what do they do with their lives now?
Well, like, really just sucks for, like, they're born into, like, this family that just has to, like, watch over this thing that's just there, like, in the middle of nowhere, and they have no choice but to do this. Especially the Siberia guy who's just, like, standing there in the middle of a blizzard, like, this is it. This has been my life and will continue to be my life.
Yeah. And then the thing disappears. The body part of the Dalek disappears, and he's like, well, I failed at my job.
Yeah, because some schmucks in Sheffield decided to dig up the part. And this is where we're introduced to two major characters in this episode, Lynn and, what was his name, Mitch or something like that?
I like how Mitch is like a bigger part of this episode, but you remember Lynn's name and not Mitch. I believe it is Mitch. Yeah, Mitch.
Yeah, Lynn was, I would say, very much like a damsel in distress type thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily bad, but it isn't necessarily refreshing either, you know? I mean, not that things have to be new or unique, but, you know, just yeah, not the best way for this episode to have gone, maybe. But, okay, so who Mitch and Lynn are, they're members of this sort of dig, which I assume Lynn is in charge of, because she calls Mitch in on
New
their day
Year's
off.
Day.
Yeah.
Apparently they kissed for New Year's the previous night, and Mitch is like, can we talk about that? And at first it seems Lynn's really angry about it. She's like, yeah, let's talk about that. But then it's revealed that they're like both on the same page about it, so...
They're both on the same, like, very awkward, like, I don't want to be witnessing this as a viewer page. It's another awkward workplace romance, kind of like we got in Kerblam, but without the terrorist aspect to it. In my notes, I was like, oh, great, another workplace romance, but it's okay. I'm sure these two are about to die. Little did I know.
Little did you know that none of them die. Except for all the random soldiers who attempt to take down the Dalek, but...
So the part of the Dalek, gets unearthed by Mitch and Lynn and sort of becomes attuned to its counterparts spread across the Earth.
Yeah, it starts to regenerate because they put it under a UV light, and the Doctor later on realizes that this is what caused the Dalek to come back to life.
Right. So Mitch and Lynn actually realize that something has escaped, and this is when we find out that the dig site is like just attached to like a system of underground catacombs that's just open and available to
anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Sheffield. Because meanwhile, the Doctor and gang are looking at fireworks in space, and the Doctor's like, so 19 New Year's, which one was your favorite? And then they just list off these random ones, like 2000 in Sydney, the first one in Vienna, or whatever it was.
Apparently Mesopotamia invented the concept of like the new year, which like, how historical is that?
I doubted it, but I didn't care enough to look it up.
No, neither did I.
And then the Doctor detects an alien life form on Earth, and she's like, I guess our 20th New Year's is going to be New Year's 2019.
Well, I think that was a whole meta reference, right? Of like they'd seen 19 New Years and this was 2019 type thing. Yeah. It's also weird to think about. I just thought of this right now, but like even if a lot of the New Years they'd witnessed were like the English New Year or European New Year, when you think about it, the calendars got changed in the 1700s or maybe 1800s. I forget which. So like all documents that we have of people celebrating New Year's, like prior to that, were actually written in March, which is really weird to think about.
It's true. Well, we'll be almost celebrating New Year's 2020 with Spyfall almost in March.
Yeah. And that's also weird to think about when you like look up when the U.S. presidents went into were inaugurated and started being in office, because the dates for the earliest ones are not like the actual date that we know of now, because they changed the dates.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they change the new year, they just like changed the actual day that it was. Pretty sure like how it was done was, and this is a huge digression, but I find it interesting. I think how it was done was they're just like on a certain day, they're just like, yeah, today's actually like January 1st. It's not like March 10th anymore. It's January 1st.
Everyone's like, damn, my calendars are all off.
I read that it caused confusion for years.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised. So the doctor is like, well, we got to go to investigate what the hell's going on Earth. And they beam into the TARDIS materializes in the sewers of Sheffield. And the doctor basically interrogates Mitch if there was anything weird. And Lynn's like, yeah, there was a weird squid over there, but it's gone now. And the doctor's like, The doctor gets some of its DNA when she goes to where the squid was, and she like peels some sticky goo off the wall.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, like, is anyone
fooled?
And like, no, is anyone thinking that this is not a Khaled?
That guy out there really hoping for the Pating to come back, maybe.
I was for sure at this point in the episode. And wasn't it actually spoiled by the trailers and stuff and the publicity for this?
Yes, by guess who? The BBC.
The official Doctor Who news.
I think that's part of the reason why Chibnall kept such a tight lid over the next season, because the BBC just like dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got to say, the spoilers and reveals in Series 12 are actually mind-blowing in a way.
Yeah, I'm kind of impressed they kept it hidden for so long and then waited not 12 hours after the episode aired to just spoil it for everyone who hadn't had time to watch it yet. Like, oh, you didn't watch it live? Screw you!
Well, what was interesting to me was that, the trailer that we got, the one that everyone watched shortly before the episode came out, apparently most of the scenes in that were from Spyfall Part 1 and 2.
Wow.
Even though people were speculating that, like, okay, this is over the course of maybe 6 or 7 of the episodes in this season, but apparently no. It was almost all from Spyfall.
Weird. We're going to watch that, next week for you guys.
Yeah. And did you hear about how they, like, photoshopped the Master out of the trailer?
I did not.
There's a scene in the trailer where in the final episode, the Master is in that shot, but in the trailer, he's not in the shot.
Wow.
Which is like,
impressive.
Wow, this is some media manipulation.
Wow. I mean, the worst thing about the Master being spoiled for me was that I had heard a rumor that I don't actually know how to pronounce his name, but I'll find out for next week, played the Master. Like, it was a leak from someone on the production crew, and everyone was like, nah, they wouldn't do that. And then, like, Spyfall airs, and he just pops up on screen. It's like, maybe they would do that.
Yeah, what is his... Oh, man.
I mean, I know his name. I just don't know how to pronounce it. I don't want to just
I forgot his name.
Butcher it right now. It's like
Sasha
Dwayne.
Dewan or something.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to find out how to pronounce it for next week.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a big digression.
Because now the Doctor is trying to piece together what happens. Lynn and Mitch just go home.
Yeah, they're like, bye. Oh, we find out for Lynn it's because she's being controlled by the Dalek.
Right.
Who's attached to her back and has injected itself into her brain.
Yeah, so it doesn't have its casing, but it's sort of kind of playing into the whole Russell T. Stephen Moffat thing of like, the Daleks and the humans are actually very close in nature, because the Khaled is actually able to use Lynn as its sort of casing, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And controls her to hack into the Black Archive, which is still very easy to do, I see.
Well, it's kind of explained in this episode because Unit is going through some budget negotiations.
Another, possible hint that this is an alternate universe with Unit, like, being out of commission.
Well, I remember when they said, people were just like, wow, Chris Chibnall just doing a pass at Brexit there.
Oh, maybe, yeah, for sure.
So
Brexit has now happened.
Officially gone through.
Yeah.
It has happened. Sucks for you guys.
sucks to be British right now. We say as
as the US is literally on fire.
watched I watched the State of the Union thing from the other day. I don't know if you watched that, but it's kind of like reminded me of the pep rallies that I went to in high school. And
those ones
that
one time you brought your DS to, and the vice principal was like, "Hey man, you should pay attention," and your response was, "I just literally don't care." And the vice principal had no idea how to respond to this. He like never encountered someone who like didn't care before.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, thanks for putting that to, recording and having
You're
it be
welcome.
out there in the world forever.
No one. I think no one who went to high school with us listens to this podcast.
But I share this podcast with potential people that I am going to be hired by.
Well, I can always just delete it.
No, it's okay. Just keep it in. It's funny.
Okay. Well, so Aaron shows up. And who is Aaron, you wonder? Aaron is Ryan's father, who we had never actually heard his name until right now.
Yeah. Well, they all go to Graham's house, and someone rings the doorbell, and Graham opens the door, and he's like, nope, and just slams the door on the person's face. And you think it's a solicitor.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, it is. Because...
Yeah. Well, so Ryan is like, who was it? And he's going to the door, and Graham's like, you really don't want to do that. And Ryan's like, why not? And he opens the door, and he's like, oh, shoot, I should have listened.
And Aaron, it turns out, has decided to try and turn over a new leaf and be there for Ryan.
By selling microwave ovens. We get a lot of backstory about Aaron in this episode.
Which is
in just a little bit.
It's kind of necessary because we didn't really know his side of the story. We knew Ryan's.
Yeah.
So he wants to go, like, just grab coffee with Aaron, or with Ryan, I mean, or something.
Yeah. And Ryan's like, I guess. The doctor's like, don't worry. When we figure this out, we'll let you know.
Right. So they go and do that. And this is a scene that I want to mention because I know we mentioned this in It Takes You Away. But I wanted to focus in on this scene here. This scene has absolutely nothing to do with the doctor's actions in this episode, the Dalek, or really anything supernatural. It's a 100%, realistic scene about a son and a estranged father trying to come to terms with each other.
Right.
And that's something that I think previous eras of Doctor Who have shied away from. The closest thing I can think of would be the scene in, I don't remember what episode it's in actually, but it's the one where Rose and Jackie and Mickey are at the restaurant and they're all kind of figuring out what to do and they're mad at each other. If you remember that.
Vaguely.
But that had to do also with the Bad Wolf.
Arc,
yeah.
Yeah, that's when the Doctor boots Rose back to... Was that in The Parting of the Ways?
I can't remember what episode it was in.
I think it is, because I think that's when the Doctor sends Rose to the TARDIS, and the TARDIS takes her back to wherever the hell they lived.
Yeah, where was it?
Cardiff.
Yeah, it was Cardiff. It was.
Which randomly reminded me of this comment I read on Reddit this morning, actually, where someone was like, man, it feels kind of weird that the Doctor always regenerates in the TARDIS now. And then someone was like, that's probably because every time a new showrunner comes on, they don't want to start where the previous one left off. Can you imagine Moffat like starting the show just in like Rose's apartment? Like, or Chris Chibnall just picking up like just in the Antarctic in Twice Upon a Time. Like, anyway. Aaron basically talks with Ryan and explains... We find out, actually, he doesn't explain it, but we find out he worked on an oil rig for a long time. I guess that's where he went to run away from his wife dying. That he's an engineer, and a pretty good one, apparently. He's trying to sell this microwave and oven combo, which is like the best one on the market because he helped his friend design it and is like the most efficient or something.
Yeah.
He's just lugging around this microwave oven, which, like, if you've ever tried to lug around a microwave, they're like actually kind of heavy.
No, I have not had that opportunity or pleasure, but,
One day.
One day. Well, turns out his soliciting business is not doing so hot.
Yeah. It's doing pretty piss poor, actually.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I make it sound like a scam, but it's really not. Ryan just
Like,
is kind of like, really?
it's not a great business strategy there, is it? But then they have this sort of heart to heart where Aaron tells Ryan, and this is actually a very melodramatic scene, and I personally love melodrama. So this was great for me. Aaron tells Ryan that he wants to get back on good terms with him and he wants to be there for him. But Ryan is understandably mad and he tells Aaron that he was never there for him and it really messed him up and was detrimental to him growing up.
Yeah. And Aaron basically is just like, well, it's my fault. It's my fault.
Aaron responds by saying, like, sometimes in life, and you'll understand this when you get older, Ryan, sometimes in life, you do things because you think they're right at the time. You don't think that, you don't ever type, he kind of implied this sort of thing where it's like, you don't ever do something at the time thinking like, yeah, this is the wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You do it because you think it's the best thing to do,
Right.
either for you or for the people involved or perhaps both. And then years later, you realize it was a mistake. Which is like, yeah, cuts deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the response to this dynamic between Ryan and Aaron was, but I think it's one of the best, like, relationships, not relationships in, like, romantic terms, but just, like, person-to-person relationships that we've ever seen in Doctor Who. And I think the strength of that lies in that it doesn't really have anything to do with sci-fi / supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Doctor Who is doing that kind of thing now.
Yeah. I agree.
Which isn't to say I want an entire episode that just focuses on non-sci-fi stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we had that. It was called the Aztecs.
Black Orchid.
Go back to that time that someone fell in love with the Doctor for the first time in the Aztecs.
Whoa. People say romance with the Doctor is new.
It's been here since the beginning.
Well, in a way, audiences fell in love with the Doctor in An Unearthly Child, so can you really say that that's not a classic thing? No. Dylan just has his head in his hands.
So the Doctor, they pick up Mitch
Right.
because Lynn's not picking up her phone. And Mitch kind of explains this weird crackpot theory that I guess he buys into. There's only in like one book in existence that some great battle happened and the three armies teamed up and defeated an enemy. And the Doctor's like, if this actually happened, it could explain what we're dealing with now.
Well, yeah, because it turns out the artist actually got a great, like, not shot, but a great
Painting
view
of the Dalek.
And created a great painting around that. Because they just flip open the book and it's like, bam, Dalek. The Doctor's like, oh no, if this book is any indication, my worst enemy is afoot.
Except she actually finds out from the DNA coming back in the TARDIS, and she's like, oh no, it's a Dalek.
It's the Patang now.
And the weird thing is they don't actually even see this picture until the end of the episode when they're trying to figure out how to stop the Dalek. And Mitch is like, oh yeah, I saw in the book how they stopped the Dalek before. And he pulls up the painting. And in my head, I'm like, damn, Mitch, you could have saved us a lot of time by showing us that like 30 minutes ago in this episode.
Well, Mitch isn't the brightest bulb in the
Box.
bunch, whatever. He isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He's one fry short of a Happy Meal, so to speak. Anyway, they spend the next 20 minutes trying to track Lynn because she's just gone on like a
Bender.
yeah. Essentially, she's going 100 miles an hour down the highway, and this reminded me that it reminded me how weird like distance is in the UK because they use miles and kilometers like together. Like sometimes you'll see miles and sometimes you'll see kilometers. Or actually, here's what it is. Here's what kind of weirded me out is like I'm pretty sure this is right, but like the cars in the UK, because they're like I think manufactured in junction with ones from Europe, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the speeds in the cars are in kilometers, or I think some of them, at least some of them, but the signs on the road are in miles per hour, which is like okay.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'm sure one of our British listeners will.
Will chime in and correct us.
Yeah,
Yeah, she kills. Well, she doesn't. I don't know if we don't know if she kills these two cops, but they definitely get incapacitated.
right.
And then she speeds to the like worst named thing in Doctor Who of all time, like the Central, no, the
So
Global Communications Agency. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes it even worse
It's
somehow.
GCHQ. GCHQ. Yep.
That
It's
makes
real.
it even worse. And
At least it's not. At least the name is straightforward.
I guess the Doctor communicates with the Dalek via the hologram, and the Dalek is like, "How are you doing this?" Because the Dalek kind of feedbacks the Doctor's system when they're trying to track the phone, Lynn's phone. So the Doctor talks with the Dalek. Is like, "If you don't leave, I'm going to stop you." This is actually, yeah, this is. It doesn't go to the GCHQ yet. It goes to a junkyard. And the Doctor's like, if you don't stop, I'm going to stop you. But I know where you are now. You're at the junkyard. The Dalek is like, all right.
Uh-oh.
So they leave to go to the junkyard, and they accidentally leave Graham behind because he's gone to go get like some peanut butter or something to fix the TARDIS, but the TARDIS reboots without him. And Graham's like, damn, they left me behind. So him and Aaron like just sit down and have a heart-to-heart.
Right. Really, a lot of this episode is dedicated to people
Aaron.
like dropping truth on Aaron.
It's true. As soon as the Doctor meets Aaron, her first words out of her mouth are, "You weren't at Grace's funeral." Cuts deep. Deep cuts. Doctor Who deep cuts.
Anyway, what Graham has to say to Aaron is that he brings out this box of stuff, and at first you think it's like Ryan's childhood, like artwork and toys and whatever, and you think that Graham is going to say that like this is what you missed out on in Ryan's childhood, but it's actually not. It's actually something even more like just a smack to the face for Aaron and just a wake up call for Aaron, because it's actually Aaron's stuff from when he was a kid.
That Grace hung on to.
Right. And Graham is just kind of, I don't know, rubbing it in his face, but also making a point that, like, Grace was there for him to such a huge extent.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so proud of him until he just kind of fell off the map with Ryan.
This is kind of a wake-up call for Aaron because he's like, oh, shoot, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. One thing that felt kind of unfair, I know I'm talking about these characters like they're real people, but one thing that felt unfair to me with Aaron is that he's trying in this episode like to come back and be part of Ryan's life. And it's not an easy thing to do, but he's just getting shot down so much.
I don't know if they're necessarily shooting him down as so much as making sure he understands the repercussions of the actions that he's now trying to fix.
Yeah.
And that he doesn't think it's just going to be like an easy fix.
Yeah, good point.
Because I think Ryan and Graham both like recognize that Aaron's trying to make an effort now, but I think they want to make sure that Aaron's, one, doing it for the right reasons, and two, recognizes that it's not just going to be like a, hey, I'm sorry, now we're best buds again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the Dalek builds itself a casing basically out of junkyard metal, and the Doctor shows up and is like, what is this, junkyard chic? And the Dalek's like, humans can't stop me. And the Doctor's like, scan me, I'm not a human. And then the Dalek is like, the Doctor is an enemy of the Daleks. Destroy.
Well, doesn't the Dalek as Lynn goes to the Black Archive, doesn't it? Because they meet. Well, I wasn't sure whether this was the Black Archive or not. I think it was, because we get this thing of like the guy was like, "It's my first day here," which is a known thing.
I think he goes to the Black Archive to get a Dalek weapon.
Yeah, they get that's where the Dalek gets the
pew pew.
Right, the Dalek gun.
That it then incorporates into its new casing.
Yeah. Just another reminder that like the Black Archive totally does this inhumane thing where they wipe their employees' memories every single day.
The doctor tried to call a unit, but gets the UK like security helpline, and she's like, "Hey, I need unit." And they're like, sorry, unit is suspended due to budgetary negotiations right now. I think the doctor even asked, like, I need Kate Stewart.
Yeah.
I can't
So
wait for the day where Kate Stewart meets the 13th Doctor and they both look at each other and realize they're both blonde-haired women of approximately the same height.
well, I didn't get this while watching the episode, but I guess this was a dig at Brexit, like you mentioned.
A little bit.
Yeah.
There's
It's
that
also
dig at technology later.
there's a weird, maybe this is a dig, maybe it's not here, but like the woman on the phone is like, if you need access to other armed forces, I can connect you to like, and it was like, wait, what? Like you can just call in armed forces? Like what is this?
It's like swatting, but extreme. You know what swatting is, right?
What, calling in like a SWAT team or something? I don't know. Like
Yeah,
calling
it
in like
was
a
like
private army.
It was like a shitty thing people on Twitch would do where they would like call a SWAT team to the Twitch streamer's house.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about the whole Twitch and streaming like culture, but the little I do know makes me want to stay as far away from it as possible.
Understandably, and rightfully so, probably. So the doctor kind of runs away and gets in the TARDIS and is like, I gotta go pick up Graham. And they're like, what did you do out there? And she's like, may have aggravated the Dalek, might want to kill all of us. I don't know. And they're like, what? It's revealed that this is also the most dangerous Dalek because it's like a recon scout, which has like more abilities than regular Daleks, which like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is how it was able to like feedback the TARDIS's navigation system when they were trying to track it through Lynn's phone.
right.
So then we get some gratuitous scenes of the Dalek just destroying things in a hilarious manner.
Well, they actually do call in some armed forces.
Who just get destroyed.
Yeah. There's actually a very, I don't know if I would call it gruesome, but maybe just horrifying scene where the Dalek, like, it's these two guys trying to get out of a tank, and the Dalek is, like, charging up, and they're not able, because of just how the tank is configured, they just can't do it in time.
Yeah, because it's actually a pretty cool kind of shot because the tank shoots a missile at the Dalek, and the Dalek shoots its own missile, which ricochets off the tank's missile, both deflecting the tank one and reflecting the Dalek's one into the tank. And they see the missile coming, and that's when they're trying to get out, and then kaboom, they blow up.
Yeah.
So, and the Doctor goes to get Graham, and then follows the Dalek, just by tracking basically the casing now.
Right.
Now that it's in a personal tank.
Aaron is introduced to the TARDIS, and Ryan tells him, he's like, hey, like, this is where I've been since Nan died. Been traveling the universe with these guys. I think that was his exact line.
Yeah. And they go to the GCHQ.
Yeah.
And they come up with this plan. Aaron actually comes up with this plan because they see the picture of the Dalek melting in the book, and Aaron's like, oh, we can use my microwave. And the Doctor doesn't get it at first, but he asks people to help him disassemble the microwave, and the Doctor figures it out, like, oh yeah, we can use the magnetic coils basically in the microwave to superheat the Dalek and melt it.
Right. So they confront the Dalek, and, before we dive into the rest of the episode, sort of a behind-the-scenes thing is, like, how did they fit it's 7 people, right? How did they fit all of them in the TARDIS prop? Like, we see them come
big.
out.
Oh, in the actual box.
Yeah.
Don't they like remove the backside of the box?
Probably what they did, yeah.
I feel like I've seen a behind the scenes video of the 11th or 12th Doctor era where the backside of the box was like removed so you can just walk through.
Yeah, probably what they did. So otherwise it's like 7 people like in there. And I think it was Jenna Coleman who actually said this, but she's like, yeah, just being in the TARDIS prop is like just the weirdest thing. Is you're just kind of waiting in there with like just standing really close to like 1 or 2 other people, and then you just come out.
And act.
And act, yeah. I'll try and find the exact quote. I want to say it was from Jenna Coleman.
So basically the Doctor gives the Dalek like one more chance to surrender, and then she turns to her friends and is like, I gave it a chance, right? Like, you saw me, right? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And she's like, I'm quick enough to execute this plan, right? And they're like, maybe. And she's like, that one needs work, guys. So they deactivate the shield, and she slides across the room, and they attach all the magnetic stuff to the Dalek, and they melt the casing. And they're like, yeah, woo, we did it. but
But they didn't.
not before Aaron stumbles in. He's like, "No, you didn't."
Because the Khaled inside has attached itself
To
to
Aaron,
Aaron.
and it tells the doctor that it has to take it back to the fleet if she wants Aaron to survive. And she's like, "All right, sure. Let's all pile into the TARDIS again." So they do. Of course, the Khaled, for some reason, is blindly trusting that the doctor is going to take him back to the fleet. But instead, surprise, the doctor takes them to a supernova and opens up a Khaled-sized hole in the vacuum seal.
Yeah, it was called a vacuum. She calls it a vacuum corridor.
And so the Khaled starts getting sucked out, and it's like still holding on to Aaron's back, and they're like, "Let go," and he's like, "No," and he's like, "Let go," and they're like, "No."
Yeah, and this is straight out of 42. I'm quickly learning that this is a type of scene that Chris Chibnall likes to write, of like a spaceship door getting opened and someone getting sucked out slowly.
And Ryan runs up and it's like, "I forgive you, Dad. You got to fight." So Aaron takes Ryan's hand and they pull him back, and Ryan just kind of just punches. This is pretty funny actually. Kind of just punches the Khaled in the face, and it lets go, and it goes flying into the supernova. And then the doctor closes the door, and that's basically the end of the episode actually.
Yeah, well, they bring Mitch and Lynn back to the dig site, and they're like, knock yourselves out, have fun with this rest of this archaeological dig. Because this is just a random guy. Like, we took care of the interesting part. Now you're just unearthing some human bones.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they drop off Aaron, and Ryan's like, "Yeah, I'm going to travel with them." And Aaron's like, "All right." And then the doctor offers Aaron a ride. He's like, "Would you like a ride?" And he's like, No, thank you."
So we're left with the idea that Aaron and Ryan have reconciled, and they're going to try and be a part of each other's lives more now.
Yeah, because Aaron's like, "Give me a call when you get back," and Ryan's like, "I will." Which, like, it's a time machine, so that'll be in like 10 minutes from now.
Well, I wonder if the 13th Doctor modded her companions' phones like the ninth did.
Like all the previous Doctors did.
All the other ones did.
And the reboot ones anyway.
Did the 12th?
Yeah, he modded Bill's phone, I think.
I don't remember specifically when he did that, but okay.
I think they stopped showing it on screen.
Yeah.
And that's the end. And that was the end of Doctor Who until 2 months ago.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I think this is the episode title describes this episode well. A really fitting resolution to the first season of the 13th Doctor, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it carries on the themes of the whole season through to the end, and it also wraps up a lot of plot threads that were kind of dangling there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know we mentioned this last week, but Yaz is kind of hung out to dry in favor of Graham and Ryan, especially in the second half of this season. But I did like the sort of wrap up of like, last week Ryan was the one who was telling Graham, you got to forgive people. Mm-hmm. It's not all about revenge. And this week that's put to the test and he comes through type thing.
Yeah, there's a nice little character arc for Graham and Ryan over the last 3 episodes, because first Graham accepts that he's not responsible for Grace's death. And then he learns how to not necessarily forgive, but not to take revenge on Tim Shaw. And then Ryan learns to forgive his dad, maybe not fully, but at least a little bit, for leaving. Just based on the experiences Ryan has had now. Right. Especially convincing what's his name in Saranga Conundrum to stick with the kid.
There's actually a line in this that I just remembered. Graham tells Aaron that like there's more to family than just blood relations. There's more to family than just DNA. Mm-hmm. Because he says that in response to, because Aaron's like, what the heck, when he hears Ryan call Graham granddad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me, I read this is not really related, but I read this book recently called A Single Man. I forget who it's by, but I'll put it in the show notes, but it's actually by this British guy who moved to California weirdly. But it's about this gay guy who like is coming to terms with the fact that he's never going to like have biological children type thing. It was a really interesting book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know. I had a couple actual things I wanted to touch on with this episode.
Go for it.
Well, actually just one. The Doctor has a line in this episode I don't know why I keep saying in this episode, like, what else are we talking about? But the doctor has a line where she says, like, the Daleks, like, I always think I get rid of them, but they just keep coming back. And that was kind of a meta line to me, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
bear with me here, but like, if you think about it, if the Daleks were not hugely popular in the 60s, they would have never come back.
Yes.
So in a way, it's the fans who keep bringing the Daleks back as a problem for the Doctor to face.
I mean, kind of. That's like there was pretty big outcry, backlash when Chris Chibnall basically said, "I'm not bringing any returning villains back for Series 11. Like it's going to be all new villains," and it was. It was. That's how we got the Stenza. But I guess part of the response to that backlash was him going, "Well, I guess we can include the Daleks in Resolution." Maybe.
I personally like the fact that it was all new. I
Me
mean,
too. Because I feel like you run out of stories to do with the same villains every so often, right? Like this happened with the Weeping Angels. You could beat him to death, and now it's like, well, what do we do now? The Statue of Liberty's an angel.
yeah, and this is something we also talked about with Travis and Servalan on Zenith of Blake 7 podcast. Check that out. Is that when you keep defeating the same enemy like time after time after time, they just stop like seeming menacing or villainous at all. They just start to seem like Saturday morning villains. Like, yeah, the X-Men defeat Magneto every single week, and every time he shows up, you know they're going to beat him.
It's the same thing with the Master too, which is why I think part of the reason why I like Well Enough for Time and Dr. Fall so much is that the Master kind of wins in that episode. I mean, yeah, the Master kills him/herself in a weird kind of dual thing. But at the end of the day, the Master got what they wanted, which was that the Doctor was killed, basically.
Right.
And the Doctor couldn't win.
That entire season also did an interesting take where the Master wasn't really the villain. She was just kind of a character trying to work out her own morality, yeah. But like in hindsight, I actually think that this was a good way to take the Daleks. It wasn't just like another large scale like conflict
CG
between the Doctor.
fest.
Yeah, I guess. Or it wasn't like Daleks in Manhattan type thing. Or it wasn't just like another Dalek like Time Lord war or battle.
Well, yeah, it was a more like personal kind of character-driven story in which the Dalek was also a character because the Dalek's like been asleep for 4,000 years or I don't remember exactly how long.
Couple thousand, I think.
The Dalek fleet is like probably like not even listening for the recon Dalek anymore. Like this is a Dalek out of time, basically. Oh, I forgot to mention the Digit technology when the Dalek turns off all the Wi-Fi and internet.
Oh, yeah.
And this family's just like, none of the Wi-Fi is working. And the kids are like, what are we going to do now? And the mom's just like, I guess we got to have a conversation. And the kid's like, what?
The Dalek is the real hero of this episode, bringing families closer together on New Year's Day.
Great.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, just to reiterate, great cap on this season, I think. Can't wait for Series 12. It seems, the spoilers that I know make it seem like another, like, potentially one of the best seasons ever of Doctor Who, which, again, I think Series 11 plus Resolution is the best that Doctor Who's ever put out.
Including Season 17?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Literally an hour ago, you were like, I don't know.
Well, now having talked about it now, I say my opinion is swayed in favor of this.
Might just be recency bias, though.
Maybe, yeah. I'll try and, maybe touch back on this in a month or two and see if I still think so.
Yeah, no, I think Series 11 is really good. I liked that basically every character had a character arc, including the small ones. Like I mentioned, It Takes You Away, where Graham like pulls a sandwich out of his pocket. And like for the whole season, Graham's like, can we go get food? Like, why don't we ever stop to get food? And then It Takes You Away, he's like, I packed this time, brought myself some lunch.
Took matters in my own hands.
Like even small things like that are I think are to the benefit of the season.
Like they contribute to like making these characters feel like actual characters and not just like plot devices to be used by the Doctor,
Yeah, they make you like care about Graham and Ryan and Yaz.
Wow. Yeah, harsh, but yeah. That's
I
the
mean, that's the thing though, is that like Yaz didn't really have a character arc this season. She had episodes like Demons of the Punjab, um, and kind of Arachnids in the UK were the Yaz episodes, but I don't think she really has like an arc where you can say that in Woman Who Fell to Earth and in Resolution that she has learned or grown in any way.
right, yeah. Compared to Ryan and Graham, she does not have an arc at all, but that's okay, you know?
I mean, that's okay, and maybe that's a byproduct of them killing Grace off in the first episode. Um, but you don't need to go through trauma to have like a character arc. We could have seen her start as a very like doesn't play by the rules cop, like does her own thing, and then like the doctor teaches her like how being reckless, which is what the doctor does every week, can cost you lives or something. Like I don't know.
Well, something that perhaps we might see in Series 12 is, was, you know, perhaps like an arc with Yaz and the Master, which there's, you know, even if this wasn't planned since the beginning, there's a setup for that in this season, I think, because there is that line in the Battle of Ranskor of Kolos where Yaz is like, yeah, let's sacrifice these two people. And there is that moment where we find out that she became a cop because she wanted to like defeat bullies and stuff.
Yeah,
So
like it was just a little violent when you
yeah,
think about it. Like,
so maybe like she goes too far with that idea and ends up teaming up with the Master. In that
maybe
sense, I would say that this season is kind of brilliant for setting all that up,
whether
regardless of whether
intentional or not.
yeah, regardless of whether it was all planned or not. But that's the thing when you have like these multiple seasons is like you go back and say, okay, what did we not capitalize on last season that we can bring into this season that is in line with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's very clearly things in the season that Chibnall put in there to set up later seasons, like the whole Timeless Child thing, which is like now was brought back in Series 12, and like the finale of the season, I don't know if you know this, is named The Timeless Children.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know that, but yeah, interesting stuff. And next week
we'll be there.
we'll be there. Yeah.
Which fun announcement, which as long as plans haven't broken down by this point, we're planned to be joined by JB Anderton yet again on this show. He's
Right.
be watching Spyfall Part 1 and Part 2 with us. So that's very exciting, I think.
Yeah. And before we go into our outro, we wanted to touch on all of the famous people the Doctor claims to have met.
Yeah, this season, because that was kind of our running a segment every week.
Yep.
So we're going to summarize it here now that we've summarized the season, summarized the Doctor. So let's hit it.
Oh, am I
Well, you've got the list.
Yes, I have the list. So, okay, yeah, here we go. So the Doctor mentions having, we split this up by men and women. I don't know why, but
Because we wanted to see if there were more men or more women that
yeah.
she had met.
okay. So we have on the men side of things, Houdini, Einstein, Mountbatten, Pythagoras, and Elvis. So 5 there. And the women's side of things, we have Agatha Christie, Amelia Earhart, and Audrey Hepburn. So the men went out.
Right.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is probably also just part of the like sexism of human history of like, yeah, there's more famous men than there are women.
Also true. Also true.
But the Doctor also mentions that she might perhaps be Banksy herself. So there's that one too.
Oh, yeah, and Rosa. She also meets Rosa and King James this season. So
Right.
There you go. Even more historical people.
Yeah. And Agatha Christie was someone she met in the
On screen.
yeah, on screen.
So,
Yeah.
and that quote was actually a direct reference to that episode. I'm noticing now that Chris Chibnall's only really referenced Russell T episodes with his in-episode mentions. Maybe because he did more work for the show on the Russell T era, because that's when he like basically was show running Torchwood.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll probably never know unless he comes out and says that, like, yeah, I deliberately ignored the Moffat era, which I don't think he ever would come out and say that, whether he did or not.
Yeah, definitely not. That would have been rioting in the streets. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Series 12. I'm looking forward to seeing where they take the Doctor's character. I know that Chibnall said that they wanted to really explore now in Series 12, the repercussions of the Doctor, like not telling the companions anything about her, basically, which I didn't really realize until he said that. But, like, yeah, this season, compared to previous seasons, I think the companions know a lot less about the Doctor than before.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They don't really know, like, where she's from. they don't really know anything about her personal history because she tends to brush it aside when people ask.
Yeah, that's perhaps like maybe that's also a result of not including any returning villains because a lot of the times the Doctor will be like, "Yes, I'm the Doctor and I'm from Gallifrey and I'm a Time Lord and we're the enemies of the Daleks who are these evil beings." But we got none of that this time. I don't think they even know she's from Gallifrey or like what
Nope.
she is.
Nope. Even though she has like, there was one or two villains like the Ux that she recognized that alien species, but she didn't like do the whole like, and I'm from Gallifrey thing.
Right.
Like even in this episode, when she recognized the Daleks, she didn't go like the Daleks are the biggest enemies of my people, and they wiped us all out in the Time War.
What if I don't think they would
PTSD flashbacks.
Yeah. I don't think they would do this, but like what if at the end of the 13th Doctor's run, like we find out that it wasn't actually the Doctor or something?
I don't think they would do that, especially
would-
since we saw on screen Peter Capaldi regenerate into Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, we did see that, but
Be hard to like. It'd be hard to hand wave that away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking like perhaps it was another Time Lord or character that like took the 13th Doctor's appearance. I don't think that would ever be done. I think the backlash that would happen because of that would outweigh any like.
There's already backlash because somehow the one spoiler we haven't spoiled of all the ones we know is that there's yet another female Doctor in Series 12. So.
Wait, what? We have both spoiled that. What?
We didn't say that on either of these episodes yet.
Oh. We said there was another Doctor last week. We didn't mention that it was another female Doctor.
Female
but it is.
Of color Doctor. Who's implied to be pre-Hartnell, and everyone's like losing their minds. Which I thought was funny because throwback to when like Tom Baker implied that the Doctor would revisit old faces in the future and that he was like a way future incarnation of the Doctor, and people were like, yeah, that's fine, just because it's Tom Baker.
Well, I mean, I don't. But I think the backlash is that Hartnell was always implied to have been the first one.
Allegedly. If you believe the faces in Morbius were the other guy and not the Doctor. Because I remember us mentioning that there was like some fan discussion over in Morbius because the Doctor and Morbius have this like mind battle, and we see a bunch of faces of someone we've never seen before.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And there was a lot of fan discussion about maybe those were like pre-Hartnell Doctors or if they were incarnations of Morbius, and like no one ever really came to a consensus on it. And I remember us mentioning that someone who worked on that episode said the intention was for it to be the Doctor, but that's one of those ones that's easy to hand wave away because it's not explained in the episode.
Huh. Yeah, well, we'll have to see how it all plays out. This is actually a very interesting time in Doctor Who of like, there's a lot of mysteries that have been introduced and not resolved.
Yet.
Yeah.
The BBC's like, you should watch the finale live because there's some big reveals. And I'm like, oh no, can't wait to have them spoiled for me 30 minutes after the episode airs. Woo! Well, with that, we'll be moving into the contemporaneous season of Doctor Who next week.
And we'll be moving into... I think what's for you the first like new content in like 3 years.
Yeah, since Battlefield.
Or Survival?
Survival, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Survival. Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't watched these episodes because I knew we were going to catch up very soon, so I opted not to watch them on transmission. And on that note, you can email us at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, advice, love letters, your thoughts on... I almost said Banksy for some reason. Resolution. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And like we mentioned earlier, next week we're going to be joined by JB Anderton to watch Spyfall. But until then, the end.